Picture this. It's 11:47 p.m. You're driving home alone. The highway stretches out empty in both directions. Your phone's almost dead. The radio crackles with static between stations. And then, you feel it. Someone breathing in the passenger seat. You turn your head. There's no one there. Of course there isn't. You're alone. You've been alone since you got on this highway 20 minutes ago. But the breathing doesn't stop. It gets louder, closer, and you can feel the air moving. Feel the weight of something sitting right next to you. 3 seconds later, your car crosses the center line. This isn't fiction. This is mile 39 on Route 716. A single mile of American highway where the impossible happens over and over again. Where cars crash only when the driver is alone. Where every survivor tells the same story that no one wants to believe. They felt a presence, and it was breathing. Tonight, we're going to drive that mile together, and by the end, you're going to understand why some roads should never be traveled alone. Route 716 cuts through the back roads of northern Pennsylvania. 42 miles of two-lane blacktop connecting small towns that barely exist on maps anymore. For most of its length, it's just another forgotten highway. Unremarkable, ordinary. But mile 39 is different. The first documented crash was in 1987. A woman named Linda Garrett drove off the road at 2 a.m., hit a tree, and died on impact. She was alone. No alcohol in her system. No mechanical failure. The road was dry. Visibility was clear. The police report called it driver error and filed it away. Then it happened again and again. By 2003, there had been 11 fatal crashes on that exact mile. All single-vehicle accidents. All solo drivers. And here's what made investigators start paying attention. The statistical probability of that many crashes happening in one specific mile, with no environmental factors, is essentially zero. But statistics don't prepare you for the survivors. Claire Dennison was the first one to say it out loud. It was October 2019. She was driving home from her sister's house, taking Route 716 because it was faster. Said she remembers entering mile 39 because she saw the marker in her headlights. And that's when everything changed. In her own words, the temperature dropped. I could see my breath. And then I heard it. Someone breathing next to me. Not like distant, right there, inches from my face. I looked over and the passenger seat was empty. But I swear to God, I could see the cushion compressed, like someone was sitting there. I panicked. I looked back at the road, and I was already going off the shoulder. Her car flipped twice. Fractured ribs, collapsed lung, shattered collarbone. She was in the hospital for 3 weeks. And she's one of the lucky ones. Because Claire survived to tell people what she felt, what she heard. That slow, deliberate breathing that didn't stop even after the crash. Even after the paramedics pulled her from the wreckage. She said it followed her into the ambulance. Local newspapers called it shock, trauma, the mind playing tricks. But then Marcus Webb crashed on the same mile 2 years later. And he told the exact same story. Word for word, the breathing, the presence, the feeling of not being alone. And Marcus had never heard of Claire Dennison. That's when mile 39 stopped being a coincidence and became something else entirely, something worse. So let's talk about the mile itself. Because if you're looking for answers, you start with the location. Mile 39 of Route 716 is nothing. And that's what makes it so terrifying. There's no sharp curve, no blind hill, no hidden intersection. It's a straight, flat stretch of road with a pine forest on the left and an open field on the right. During the day, you can see for half a mile in either direction. At night, streetlights illuminate most of it. There's nothing obstructing the view, nothing unusual about the pavement, no history of flooding or fog. Engineers have studied that mile 8 different times. They've measured the road camber, tested for sinkholes, analyzed the asphalt composition. They've checked for electromagnetic interference, carbon monoxide buildup, infrasound frequencies that could cause hallucinations. Nothing. Every test comes back normal. The Pennsylvania Department of Transportation even installed new guardrails, repainted the lines, added reflective markers every 50 feet. Crashes kept happening. In 2018, they put up surveillance cameras. Thought maybe they'd catch something. Drunk drivers, drag racing, anything that would explain it. And they did catch something, but it didn't explain anything. The footage shows cars driving normally, maintaining speed, staying in their lane. And then, without warning, without any visible cause, they veer off the road. Some gradually drift, others jerk hard to the left, or right like the wheel was yanked from their hands. But here's the detail that keeps investigators awake at night. In 3 separate incidents, the camera caught the interior of the car through the windshield. All 3 drivers were looking at their passenger seat, not the road, the passenger seat, and all 3 had the same expression. Terror, pure, primal terror. One of those drivers was found dead with his hands still on the wheel, eyes wide open, staring at the empty seat next to him. The coroner said his heart just stopped. No medical explanation. A healthy 34-year-old man's heart simply quit beating. They ruled it a crash-related fatality. But the crash happened because his heart stopped, not the other way around. And when they towed his car to the impound lot, they found something no one could explain. The passenger seat was adjusted all the way forward, pushed up like someone much shorter than the driver had been sitting there. The driver lived alone. No one had been in that car with him for months. Marcus Webb is a long-haul trucker, 30 years on the road. He's driven through blizzards, black ice, roads where one wrong move means a 100-foot drop. He doesn't scare easy, but when he talks about mile 39, his hands shake. It was March 2021. He was driving his personal truck, not the rig, coming home after visiting his daughter in Pittsburgh. Route 716 was the shortcut. He'd driven it 100 times before. He remembers the mile marker, 39, lit up in his headlights. And immediately, the cab got cold. Not like the heater stopped working, like something was pulling the warmth out of the air. Then the breathing started. It wasn't human, Marcus said in his interview. It was too slow, too deliberate, like someone trying to mimic breathing without understanding the rhythm. And I could feel it, feel the air hitting my face from the passenger side. Marcus is a practical man. He convinced himself it was a vent, a draft, something mechanical. He kept driving, kept his eyes on the road, and then it spoke. Not words, not language, but a sound, a whisper that came from right next to him. He said it sounded like his name, but stretched out, distorted, like hearing yourself on a recording that's been slowed down. That's when Marcus looked. The passenger seat was empty, but the seatbelt was buckled. He watched it. The buckle was fastened across nothing, just hanging there in midair like an invisible person had clicked it into place. Marcus slammed on the brakes. The truck fishtailed, went off the road, and hit a drainage ditch. The impact threw him into the steering wheel, cracked 2 ribs, but he survived. When the police arrived, the seatbelt was still buckled. The officer had to manually release it. Asked Marcus why he'd buckled an empty seat. Marcus didn't have an answer. Because he hadn't touched it. The officer put it in his report. Driver claims seatbelt fastened itself. That report is public record. You can look it up. But Marcus's story goes deeper than that. Because 3 days later, sitting in his hospital bed, he remembered something else. Something he'd blocked out in the moment. Right before he looked at the passenger seat, right before he saw the buckled seatbelt, he felt a hand on his shoulder, cold fingers, pressing into his collarbone. And when he jerked away from it, that's when he lost control. Now here's where it gets worse. Because Marcus isn't the only one who felt physical contact. There's a girl, 16 years old when it happened. I'm not using her name because she's a minor and because she hasn't spoken a full sentence since the crash. Her parents let reporters see her once. Just once. She was sitting in a chair, staring at nothing. And when they asked her what happened on mile 39, she did something that made everyone in the room go silent. She reached over to the empty chair next to her, and she held its hand, fingers interlaced with nothing, holding on tight. And she smiled. Not a happy smile, a relieved smile, like someone had finally come back for her. Her mother started crying and ended the interview. That girl hasn't been alone in a room since. Won't get in a car. Won't even sit by herself. She needs someone next to her at all times. And if you try to make her sit alone, she screams until someone sits down. Because she knows something the rest of us don't. She knows what's in the passenger seat. Here's the pattern investigators found after combing through every crash report, every testimony, every piece of evidence. Every single victim, every single one, had driven past someone on the road in the week before their crash. A hitchhiker with their thumb out. A stranded motorist with their hazards on. Someone walking along the shoulder at night. And they didn't stop. Claire Dennison, 2 days before her crash, she drove past an old man standing next to a smoking car. She was late for dinner. Didn't want to get involved. Marcus Webb, the week before, he passed a woman holding a gas can on the side of Route 716. It was raining. He was tired. He kept driving. The teenage girl, 3 days before her crash, she drove past a hitchhiker outside of town. A man in his 20s, thumb out, backpack on. She'd been taught never to pick up strangers. Every victim, every single one, they'd left someone behind. And when police went back and checked traffic camera footage, security cameras from gas stations, dashcam videos from other drivers, they tried to verify these people, the ones who'd been left on the side of the road. They couldn't find them. No one else saw the old man with the broken-down car. No one else reported a woman needing gas on that stretch of road. No hitchhiker matching that description was ever seen by anyone else. It's like they only appeared for the people who were about to drive mile 39 alone. And here's the final detail that makes your skin crawl. When they found the teenage girl's car in the ditch, her phone was still recording. She'd been on a video call with her boyfriend when the crash happened. He heard everything, the breathing, the whisper, and right before impact, a voice that wasn't hers said, "You should have stopped." Detective Sarah Kraus was assigned to mile 39 in 2022 after the 9th crash in 3 years. She's a 15-year veteran of the Pennsylvania State Police, solved 2 cold case homicides, built her career on evidence and logic. She didn't believe in ghosts, but she believed in patterns. Sarah spent 8 months reviewing every file, every crash report, every witness statement. She interviewed survivors. She drove mile 39 herself a dozen times during the day, mapping every inch of it. She even requested the original police reports from the 1987 crash, the first one on record. And that's when she found it. Linda Garrett, the first victim, the woman who died in 1987. She wasn't alone when she started driving that night. Her boyfriend was with her. They'd been fighting. He told police they argued, and he asked her to pull over. She did. Right at the start of mile 39, he got out, slammed the door, started walking. Linda drove away, angry, hurt. She left him there on the side of the road, and 3 minutes later, she crashed and died. Her boyfriend was found 2 miles up the road, walking. He heard the sirens, came back. When he saw her car wrapped around that tree, he broke down, told the police it was his fault. If he hadn't gotten out, if he hadn't made her upset, she'd still be alive. The boyfriend's name was Thomas Collier. And here's what Sarah found when she dug deeper. Thomas Collier died 6 months after Linda's crash. Suicide. Walked into the woods near mile 39 and never walked back out. They found his body 3 weeks later. The coroner's report noted something strange. His body was positioned like he'd been sitting, back against a tree, hands folded in his lap, peaceful, like he'd been waiting for someone. Sarah's theory started taking shape. Not supernatural, not exactly, but predatory in a way that felt worse than ghosts. Mile 39 wasn't haunted by a spirit. It was haunted by guilt. Thomas Collier died full of regret. Died knowing he'd left Linda angry. Died wishing he'd stayed in that car. And somehow, that guilt, that desperate need to be a passenger again, to undo that moment, it soaked into the road. Now it waits. For people who've done the same thing. People who've left others behind. People who drove past someone who needed help. Who chose not to stop. Who put themselves first. Mile 39 is where guilt catches up. But Sarah needed proof. So she did something incredibly dangerous. She drove mile 39 alone at night. With recording equipment, with cameras mounted in her car. She wanted to document what happened, to prove or disprove the phenomenon once and for all. She entered mile 39 at 11:52 p.m. The temperature gauge dropped 5 degrees in 10 seconds. Then the breathing started. Sarah kept her eyes on the road, hands steady on the wheel. She was trained for high-pressure situations. She could handle this. But then she heard the voice. "You left her." Sarah's blood went cold, because she knew exactly what it meant. 8 years ago, Sarah had been first on scene to a domestic violence call. A woman was being beaten by her husband. Sarah arrived, separated them, took statements. The woman was terrified, begged Sarah to arrest him, but there wasn't enough evidence. Sarah had to let him go. 2 weeks later, that woman was dead. Sarah has carried that guilt ever since. The woman she couldn't save, the call she couldn't do more about, and now something in her car knew about it. "You left her," the voice whispered again. Closer now, right next to her ear. Sarah looked in the rearview mirror, and she saw it. Not clearly, not a full shape, but a silhouette in the passenger seat. Hunched forward, head tilted, staring at her. Sarah jerked the wheel. The car swerved. She fought to control it, slammed on the brakes. The car stopped 10 feet from the guardrail. Sarah sat there, breathing hard, staring at the passenger seat. Empty, just an empty seat. But the seatbelt was buckled, and on the recording equipment, when Sarah reviewed it later, you can hear it, clear as day. Breathing, slow and deliberate, and then a whisper, "Stop next time." Sarah didn't file an official report about her drive. How could she? Who would believe her? Instead, she kept digging, kept searching for the connection, and she found it in a missing persons case from 1986, 1 year before Linda Garrett's crash. A hitchhiker named Danny Ortiz disappeared on Route 716. Last seen trying to get a ride near mile 39. Multiple drivers reported seeing him. Young guy, early 20s, backpack, thumb out. No one stopped. Danny Ortiz was never found, presumed dead. Case went cold. But here's the thing. Linda Garrett drove Route 716 regularly. She would have passed mile 39 dozens of times in the months before her crash. And according to witness statements, Danny Ortiz was out there for 3 days before he vanished. 3 days of drivers passing him by, including, Sarah believed, Linda Garrett. Thomas Collier got out of her car at the exact spot where Danny Ortiz used to stand. And when Linda drove away, when she left Thomas there alone, maybe she was never alone after that. Maybe Danny got in the car with her. Sarah's theory, mile 39 is a loop, a closed circuit of guilt and regret. Danny Ortiz died because no one stopped. Thomas Collier died because he got out of the car. And now they're both there, waiting, watching, for people who do the same thing they did, for people who leave others behind. But Sarah found one more thing, one more piece that made everything worse. She interviewed a man named Carl Hendricks. He's 67 now, lives 2 miles from mile 39. And in 1986, he was driving Route 716 late at night when he saw Danny Ortiz on the side of the road. Carl didn't stop either. I was young, Carl said. Stupid, I thought. Not my problem. I drove right past him. And you know what? I've thought about that kid every day since. Every single day. Because a week later, I saw his face on a missing persons poster. And I knew I could have helped him. I could have given him a ride. Could have saved his life. Carl has nightmares about it. Has for almost 40 years. But Carl has never driven mile 39 alone. He said he knows, somehow, that if he ever does, he won't make it through. Sarah asked him how he knows that. Carl just looked at her and said, because I can feel him waiting for me. So here's what we know. Mile 39 isn't about the highway. It's about the choice. The moment you decide to keep driving. The moment you choose yourself over someone else. The presence in the passenger seat isn't random. It's specific. It knows you. Knows what you've done. Knows who you left behind. And it doesn't kill you. Not exactly. It just reminds you what it feels like to be abandoned. Claire Dennison survived, but she sold her car. Doesn't drive anymore. Takes the bus. Walks. Anything to avoid being alone in a vehicle. Because she said the presence didn't leave after the crash. She still feels it sometimes. In taxis. In rideshares. Sitting next to her when the driver's not looking. Marcus Webb survived too, but he quit long-haul trucking. Said he can't do it anymore. Can't drive alone for hours. The breathing comes back. Always at night. Always when he's by himself. The teenage girl hasn't spoken, but her parents say she draws pictures. The same picture over and over. A car with 2 people in it. The driver's seat and the passenger seat. Both occupied. She titles every drawing the same way. He finally came back. Sarah Krause kept investigating. Kept trying to find a rational explanation. But the more she dug, the more the evidence pointed to something that shouldn't be possible. And then, 2 months ago, something happened that changed everything. A driver named Eric Paulson crashed on mile 39. Solo driver. Same story. Breathing. Presence. Felt a hand on his shoulder. Lost control of the car. But Eric survived. And when the police pulled him from the wreckage, he was laughing. Not hysterical laughter. Relieved laughter. They asked him what was so funny. What could possibly be funny after almost dying? And Eric said, I stopped. This time I stopped. The police didn't understand. Eric explained. 2 weeks before his crash, he'd been driving Route 716 and saw someone on the side of the road. Stranded car. Hazards on. A woman standing next to it, looking desperate. And Eric almost kept driving. Almost convinced himself it wasn't his problem. But something made him stop. Some instinct. Some feeling. He pulled over. Helped her. Gave her a ride to the nearest gas station. She thanked him. Said he might have saved her life. And then, 2 weeks later, Eric crashed on mile 39. Felt the presence. Heard the breathing. But he also heard something else. A voice that said, thank you. And then the presence was gone. Eric's car went off the road, but it didn't flip. Didn't hit a tree. It just rolled to a stop in the grass. He climbed out without a scratch. When they inspected the car, the passenger seat belt was unbuckled. Sarah Krause interviewed Eric personally. Asked him if he was sure that's what he heard. If he was certain it said, thank you. Eric nodded. And then he said something that made Sarah's blood run cold. It wasn't thanking me for stopping. It was thanking me for proving it was possible. That someone could actually stop. Sarah asked what he meant. Eric said, I think it's been waiting 40 years for someone to do the right thing. And now that someone finally did, I think it's satisfied. So it's over? Sarah asked. The crashes will stop. Eric looked at her. And he said, No, because most people still won't stop. Sarah checked the crash records after Eric's incident. 3 more crashes on mile 39 in the last 2 months. All solo drivers. All survivors reporting the same experience. The presence, the breathing, the guilt. Mile 39 is still waiting, still watching, still testing every driver who comes through alone. And here's the question that keeps Sarah awake at night. The question that should keep all of us awake. If you were driving Route 716 tonight, if you passed someone on the side of the road, someone who needed help, would you stop? Or would you keep driving? Because mile 39 remembers. And eventually, if you drive it alone, it will ask you that question itself. The highway is still open. People drive it every day. Most make it through without incident, but some don't. And the ones who don't, they all have one thing in common. They drove past someone once, someone who needed them, and they chose not to stop. The road doesn't forget, and the passenger seat is never really empty. So the next time you're driving alone late at night, and you feel a chill in the air, and you hear something that sounds like breathing from the seat next to you, maybe think about who you left behind, because they haven't forgotten either. And mile 39 is waiting for you to come home.